Looking around at this, looking at all these cots, are you worried that people are sleeping so close together that if someone's got a flu, it's going to just run through this gymnasium?
One sneeze goes to one hand, goes to one nose, goes to one sneeze, and on and on.
What's the most important organ you have as a journalist? I don't think it's your head. I think it's your heart. And I think that if you work without that, then you're doing everyone, including yourself, a disservice. Hey, good evening, partner. How's it going back there?
Very well, thank you, by comparison.
Yeah, by comparison, indeed, Doug. You know, as you can see behind me, they're still trying to demolish part of the freeway that collapsed here on I-5 and 14. This is something that's going to take months just to clear and then years to repair. Now, to think of it in New England terms, you got to figure a blizzard or a hurricane back home is going to close the roads and close things down for what, a week? Maybe a little more than that, and then life slowly returns to normal? Well, the more things return to normal here in Southern California, the worse it's going to be in terms of moving traffic around the Los Angeles area, moving 12 million people around an area where 3 major highway arteries have been severed. So that is a story that will be unfolding for months to come. What's happening tonight and what will be unfolding in the weeks ahead are the personal stories of the neighborhoods and the people. You know, driving through these neighborhoods, you got to remember Southern California is an area where everyone lives behind a wall. Now, I know that sounds odd to New Englanders, but it's a way of life here. So when all of these retaining walls fall down, suddenly it's like being exposed to your neighbors for the first time, like having all the shades on your house ripped off your windows, and suddenly everyone's looking into your life. Well, we found a couple of families today who let us take a look into their lives, and wait until you see what was inside their homes. This is Sarah. Let's take a walk over here and take a look at what's happening on this front lawn, because obviously people are afraid to be in their homes, huh?
See the inside of our house, it's trashed. It's trashed. Everything's gone. I don't care as long as my kids we're okay.
I guess that's what it's all about, ultimately.
That's what it's all about.
Okay, we're inside Sandy's house. Careful of the glass, Jim. Oh my God, look, everything is shattered. Look at this. Becky, come here, honey. Stay off the ground.
The kitchen. You got to check the kitchen out. We lost every dish, every cup, every 300 coffee mug collection.
This used to be your room.
It used to be. And if I would have been in there, I would have nearly gotten, there was a bubblegum machine that would have fallen on my head. So I was lucky.
Sounds like, and it looks like you were all extremely lucky when you look at all the glass and everything that was flying around.
What it did between our yards.
I don't live with my mom anymore. I live in an apartment right around this corner, and it's condemned, and I've lost everything. I am homeless, basically, and our apartment building is condemned.
You must be in shock.
I'm still in shock. It hasn't hit me. I lost a friend. He got electrocuted trying to unplug his things. So it's been...
Yeah, come on, show us out back.
It's devastating.
But I got to tell you what I learned through this whole thing. There are enormous amounts of people that care about each other, and they don't care what color you are, they don't care what background you're from, they're there to help you. I mean, people are really good.
It's amazing how that happens.
It is amazing. You know, I lost all hope in them, but they're wonderful.
Amazing indeed, Doug. And you know, it's odd because in spite of all the devastation going on around Southern California, Chief Photographer Jim Karpachek and I were driving around and we heard on the radio the song I Love LA. So there you have it. I mean, you know, it usually takes the worst possible tragedy to bring out the best in those of us that we call human beings, right? Back to you
that's
in the
right.
studio.
Okay, thank you, Ginger. We'll check with you tonight on the News Watch at 11. We'll be right back with more news for you in just a moment. Who have become heroes since the earthquake
As you
struck.
can imagine, it is still noisy out here as they are painstakingly trying to demolish this collapsed freeway. Take a look at this. This about says it all, doesn't it? Quake. Los Angeles, devastated by an earthquake. Behind me, what they're taking down, come on and take a tight shot of this. This is some of the reinforced steel beam that goes through these kinds of freeways. Twists like spaghetti during an earthquake. Some of these beams were 5 and 6 inches across. Amazing sight out here on Interstate 5. Even more amazing when you go into the valley and you start looking at the homes and talking to the people who are living with the shattered glass and the broken walls and camping out literally on their front lawns. But what people are finding is that these moments of enormous tragedy are also moments of enormous heroism. And I understand you did some first aid, too, in the neighborhood.
Right. Up the street, there was a man that had a heart condition and was on blood thinners and had cut his arm, and I got that bandaged up, and a little boy down the street with a cut foot and a dog. You have to take care of everybody else. We were all fine. No, we have a couple bruises, a couple minor cuts, nothing like some of the other people had. And I've told a lot of people that were walking up and down the street that my husband and I do know first aid. You know, we can help. You know, this is such a busy street, we never really talk to anything but our close neighbors, and we know everybody on the block now. Whatever we can give, we give. That's just the way it has to be. If it wasn't that way, when a disaster strikes, you know, everybody would be doing the looting and whatnot.
Are you embarrassed that your neighbors are calling you a hero?
No, you know, we all gotta go together when something like this happens. I was running around the neighborhood in my underwear trying to turn off everybody's gas so that we didn't have any explosions or fires around here. And then I realized I was in my underwear when my mother-in-law said to me that it's time to go put some clothes on.
There was nothing like the terror that happened during this earthquake. I mean, there was no thought of death or anything. It was just a fright that...
So you think this was the worst fear you've ever known?
Oh, I've never experienced anything like this. Never in my life.
So that's the situation out here on Interstate 5 tonight, attempting to triumph over tragedy in both large ways and in small ways, and finding that sometimes those small acts of human kindness can turn into enormous acts of heroism. Back to you in the studio. I'll be talking to you again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much, Ginger. As Ginger mentioned, she will be with us during the day tomorrow, so be sure to join us at noon, 5:30, 6, and 11. She'll be looking for some Rhode Island connections out there in Los Angeles. We're told that there are several, including a team going from Rhode Island Hospital to bring some supplies.
I have to tell you, it is the strangest experience in the world to feel the ground begin to slip under your feet like you're on a boat on the bay. Now, we'll have more on our visit with David at 6 o'clock, and also more on the growing controversy over how FEMA is handling this disaster assistance. Back to you in the studio.
And Ginger, I know it sounds like a cliche, but when those aftershocks hit, you really have to be there because it does shake you up, right?
I have to tell you, I thought at the time, I mean, it really took my breath away, especially when you heard the house and you could see the windows rattling. And about an hour later, I was kind of nauseous. I think people around here are still very hypersensitive to any kind of trembling in the earth. Even stepping into the satellite truck, the people inside get a little nervous. They think, oh God, here it comes again. So yeah, you don't get used to it that easy.
Okay, thank you very much. Ginger Casey, live in Los Angeles.
Southern California earthquake victims trying to get help today are having a bit of a tough time of it, and some strong aftershocks are not helping. Newswatch 10's Ginger Casey is the only local reporter covering the earthquake. Ginger, what did you find today? Good evening.
Good evening, Doug. What we're finding today is very long lines throughout the San Fernando Valley. Behind me, a growing mob of angry people. There was even a diaper riot at one of the assistance centers last night. Most of these people haven't had a bath in 4 days. They haven't had a place to live in 4 days. They were told this morning on the radio by the federal government that they're going to cut through the red tape, get them some vouchers immediately. They line up, only to be told when they get to the front of the line, look at this. They're handed these forms. Come back, see the date here? February 14th. And on February 14th, then they have to make another appointment to get their homes inspected. And then after the homes are inspected, maybe a week or two after that, they'll get a check. So you can figure these lines still very long, but the tempers are getting much, much shorter. Now I want to update you also on Rhode Islander David Rio, who we were with earlier today when a series of powerful aftershocks rocked through the area. So this is where y'all have been living the last couple of days?
No, we're comfortable here.
Now you're not going in the house? Are you afraid to go back in the house?
She's afraid.
You won't go back in the house.
Terrorized. It was way worse than this. Everything was on the floor. The kitchen, refrigerator was on the floor. All the food was on the floor. These drawers were on the floor. Just disaster area. They're all Australian sheepdogs. This dog is excellent ball player. As we speak. That was a nice aftershock. I'd say it was a 5.
Listen,
House did really well.
you're a lot more relaxed about this than I am.
I'm getting used to it now. feel a little seasick once in a while. But,
A little.
yeah, glad we weren't in the house just then.
You are.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Can't beat that.
That was
Here it
pretty
goes
powerful.
again. Yeah, that was about a 5. Still
Jimmy, you
going.
okay?
Here it goes again.
Here it goes again.
Well,
I'm glad we started outside on the tour
Really?
here, David. Are you reconsidering living here?
I'd reconsider buying a house here. I still want to live here for now. I was disappointed that this wasn't the big one. I thought this was the big one.
What, you mean get it over with?
Yeah, get it over with and go on with life, but now we have to wait for the big one again. So I'll be more prepared next time.
A lot of people wanting to get on with their lives out here tonight, Doug, but as you can see from the lines behind me, this is a process that for many Southern Californians will be taking years. It's back to you in the studio.
Ginger, David mentioned preparing for the next time, as though it's just a matter of time for him, as far as he's concerned. What can they do to prepare, aside from taking precautions with regard to construction of newer facilities?
Well, you know, there are a lot of stories going out over the media today about earthquake survival kits, where to keep them in your home, also to carry a lot of those kits in the back of your car. You know, in southern New England, we are smart enough to carry blankets in the winter and antifreeze and those kinds of tools and pieces of equipment. But out here, once the sky's clear and life appears to go back to normal, people sort of go into denial about just the kind of shaky ground they're really standing on. You can hear sirens, there are fires going on all over the city still. And as I mentioned, this is going to be going on for some time.
Okay, Ginger, thank you very much. We'll see you tonight at 11. Newswatch 10's Ginger Casey has been in Southern California all week. In fact, she is the only local television reporter covering the earthquake and its aftermath. Tonight, she wraps up our coverage with some of her impressions of the disaster and a look at the biggest problems now facing Southern Californians. Ginger, from what you've seen and heard all this week, what do you think is the biggest problem right now? Is it supplying shelter or facing the prospects of rebuilding?
It's going to be a couple of different things here, Doug. You know, traffic, taking a look at just the larger picture, you've got 3 major freeways that have been ruptured, and that's going to have a severe impact not just on commuters, but on commerce as well, getting goods and supplies in and out of the Los Angeles area. The rebuilding, people are very cynical about it. You know, we have a lot of federal and state officials going on television out here and making big promises about rebuilding and quickly, but people are sort of shaking their heads saying, no, there's no way it's going to happen that fast. Right here at this FEMA center, for example, Doug, long lines since 4 o'clock this morning, and these people have been lined up here. They get up to the front of the line and they're given an appointment to come back at the end of February, and then they have to have their homes inspected, and then maybe after that they'll get some cash. So there's a tremendous amount of bureaucratic red tape that they're going to have to cut through for these people.
But I imagine the news of that February 14th date has been on local news out there, so they're not surprised when they get to the head of that line, right?
Well, no, I think the people standing in this line right now know what's waiting for them at the head of the line, but still, they still have to wait 3-4 hours. There are going to be a lot of people waiting in long lines for a very, very long time.
Again, from what you've seen and heard all week, in your estimation, what do you think was the most emotional part of this whole story? I know there are many sides to it, but in your opinion?
It's a very moving experience in more ways than one to be at the center of an earthquake, Doug. I think perhaps what touched me the most is the compassion and the support for the people who've been hardest hit by the quake. Those who have the least to share seem to be sharing the most, and maybe that's because they know themselves just how precarious life can be. But you know, Doug, I think we ought to wrap up our coverage out here with a remark we got from a gentleman today who was the first person who called us in Rhode Island when the earthquake first hit. How about you? You scared?
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of not being in control. And, you know, there's a lot of situations. If you have a hurricane or something, they tell you in advance you can take cover and do what's necessary. We have no warning with an earthquake. You're absolutely never in control. And that is what scares me the most.
So a lot of people still very much on shaky ground. Back to you, Doug.
By the way, seismologists reported 7 aftershocks in just 21 minutes today, the strongest measuring 4.6 on the Richter scale.